What's up YouTube and welcome to a new video. The 911 997 is the turbo to have right now. Prices namely increased a lot more than what they did for the turbos of other generations. Last week we had for example a look at the 996 turbo market, and that revealed that the price increase in that market was rather low and that the trend is flattening. Interestingly, the opposite is happening in the 997 market. In this video we will find out exactly what happened in the 997 turbo market and how this compares to the 996, 991 and 992 turbo market. As always, we will start with a market overview so we know what's what. Over here we have the model year to price relationship for the US turbo market of December. You can also see that each color represents a different generation. Last week we already had a look at this graph as part of the 996 turbo analysis, so I will cover this rather quickly. If we focus on the 997, we can see that it has a median price of $105,000 and that there are 133 cars for sale at the moment. Also, it's remarkable to see how well the prices are aligned with the 991. It's fairly easy to draw an imaginary line from model year 2019 to 2010. Between 2010 and 2009 there is a small market break, and this is the difference between the .1 and .2 generations. So let's have a closer look at the 997 market. We can see now that there's indeed a market break between the 997.1 and 997.2 market. The .2 has a median price of $113,000 and the .1 of $92,500. And that of course means that the .2 goes for a premium of $20,500 or 22%. Yet, if you look at the median price point for model year 2007, then you can see that the gap to the median price point for model year 2010 is a lot smaller. There are then also other important factors which drive the price, and an example of this is the transmission type. If we split the graph by the manuals and the automatics, we can see that the .1 manuals go for a premium of $25,000 and that the high number of manuals in model year 2007 can explain why the median price is so high in that model year. Now there are of course many factors which can explain the price, but instead of going through all of these market splits, let's combine all of the factors in one graph and see how they influence the price. Over here we have all of the factors which I have available in the data displayed on the horizontal axis. We have the model year, the mileage, the transmission, the model type detailed, which is the distinction between the S and the base models, the color, the generation detailed, which is the difference between the .1 and .2 cars, and the roof type. There are of course also other factors which can influence the price, such as the maintenance history and the general condition of the car, but those two are unfortunately very difficult to capture in the data. In any case, the factors what you see here do a pretty good job of explaining the price variation. They can namely explain it for 78%, and that's a good score. And with the help of the vertical axis we can also see which one of these factors is the most important. We can see for example that the mileage is key. From the 78% of variation which we can explain, the mileage contributes 48%. And in simple terms this means that the mileage is the key price driver in this market. We will then also discuss later in the video how much a 997 turbo loses per 1000 miles driven. Now the mileage is followed by the transmission type. We already saw that the .1 manuals are $25,000 more expensive than the automatics. Also the .2 manuals are by the way a lot more expensive than the .2 automatics, and the reason for this is that the manuals are extremely rare. The transmission type is then followed by the model year and the generation, two factors which of course go hand in hand. The roof type, color and detailed model type play a relatively small role in the setting of the price when you look at all of these factors combined. Yet, if we have two cars which have the same mileage, model year and generation, a S-Coupe with a bright color will be around $10,000 more expensive than a base cabriolet in grey. So we know now how the current market looks like and what the price drivers are. And that means that it's time to have a look at the price development over time. The title of this video is why the 996 turbo is the one to have. And since this is a channel about car values, that can only mean one thing: values increased. Moreover, out of all of the modern turbo models, the price increase is most severe in the 997 market. We will first investigate the 997 price development. We will figure out, for example, if there's a difference between the .1 and .2 cars. After that we will then make a comparison to the 996, 991 and 992 models. Over here we have the median price development between September 2019 and December 2021. And this just looks beautiful, doesn't it? We can see that the median price point was $81,000 in September 2019 and that it currently sits at $105,000. So prices increased by 29% or $24,000. Yet we can see that prices didn't increase linearly. Prices decreased by 1% at the beginning of the pandemic and only started to increase in the summer of 2020. This is also roughly in line with what we can see in the used car market. Yet, We can see that the trend continued to accelerate as prices increased with 10% between July 2020 and March 2021. Long-term viewers might remember that I flagged this back then on my channel. Yet, prices really soared between then and now as they increased with 19%. And this differs to the flattening trend what we can see in some other markets. However, I think it's reasonable to expect that the price increase rate will start to decrease in the future. We can see namely that supply developed from 164 to 170 to 99 and 133 cars. Hence, supply initially dropped significantly and now recovered to some extent. Now usually, but not always, this signals that the price trend will start to flatten. All of the prices in this video are, by the way, advertised prices. There is of course a significant difference between an advertised and a selling price, but for the purpose of this video it's not so relevant. It simply means a shift of the curve. Moreover, if we have a quick look at the auction results from Bring a Trailer, we can see that the price trend is approximately the same as the trend in the asking prices. Prices were give or take stable till 2020 and then started to increase. But now then, is there a difference in price development between the .1 and .2s? Let's have a look. But before we do so, if you like this video, please support the channel by clicking on the like button down below. Thank you. You can, by the way, also follow me on Instagram. It's @4wheeltrader. But let's move on now and split the price trend. Over here we have the 997.2 in orange and the 997.1 in blue. And you can see that prices developed in a similar fashion. A relatively flat development in the beginning, a modest increase in the middle, and a higher increase more recently. However, when we look at the numbers, we can see that the .1 has the upper hand, as prices increased with 26% in that market versus only 22.5% in the .2 market. The .1 market namely has a trump card, the manuals. If we only look at the 997.1 market and split it by the transmission type so that we have the manuals in orange and the automatics in blue, then we can see that the manuals increased with 40% since the beginning of the time period, and that this is 25% for the automatics. And that's an enormous difference. It doesn't happen too often that a difference in specification results in such a large difference in the price development. Moreover, the price difference is almost fully driven by the fact that the cars have a different transmission. The underlying market characteristics such as the supply, median mileage and median model year moved almost in parallel. Within the manual market it are, by the way, the cars with less than 21,000 miles which really shot up and stand out from the rest. They saw a price increase of 50%. Yes, 50% since March. And this pattern where the most desirable cars, so the low mileage manuals, increase the most is something which you typically see in collectible car markets. So perhaps this market is moving in the same direction. Now I also looked at other market splits for the .1 and .2 cars, but there weren't any significant differences. Of course, the split between the automatics and the manuals in the 997.2 market is also a significant one, but there are so few manuals for sale that it's difficult to trust the trend. In today's market there's, for example, only one for sale. But let's go back now to the main premises of this video. Why the 997 Turbo is the one to have right now. We just saw that values increased with 29% since September 2019, but if you follow the news on used car prices, or even better, this channel, then you know that this is not unique. Hence, an increase of 29% by itself is not sufficient to say that this is value-wise the best turbo model right now. So I compared the price trend in the 997 Turbo market to the price trend in the other turbo markets, and this revealed that the 997 Turbo comes out on top. Let me show you. Over here we have in orange the 992 Turbo, in blue the 991 Turbo, in red the 997 Turbo, and in green the 996 Turbo. If we look at the maximum time period for each model, then we can see an increase of 26% in the 996 Turbo market, 29% in the 997 market, only 6% in the 991 market, and this really surprised me, and 14% in the 992 market. Yet the latter result is a bit skewed. There were only 23 cars for sale in March versus 106 now. It can therefore be doubted if the median price point over here is really representative of the market. So let's focus on the 996, 997 and 991. This also increases the readability of the price axis. Now we also still need to correct for the time period, and for this we are limited to the 996 market. This is namely the shortest price development what we have. If we focus on the price development between June 2020 and December 2021, we can see that the 996s increased with 26%, the 997s with 37% and the 991s only with 9%. So this clearly shows that the momentum is strong in the 997 market, and you can also see this from the shape of the price development. The 996 price trend almost looks like it's flattening, and the 991 price trend is more or less flat. The 997 on the other hand shows an upward movement and almost the opposite of the 996 market. And this is of course an interesting observation and also something which surprised me a little bit. Why are there such a large differences between the markets? Underlying market characteristics moved in a similar way, so it's not related to that. All three of them also faced relatively similar market conditions in which used car prices soared. So is it then really down to the mechanics of the car? The 997 is often praised to be the best modern 911, combining this old school feel with some new technology. Perhaps it's then also this uniqueness which is now showing up in the price trend. Now, as I mentioned before, I think it's a bit too optimistic to expect that prices will continue to increase with this momentum. Rather, I think it's more likely to see a flattening of the trend. This is something which we have seen in many other markets, and it would be strange if the 997 turbo market would be immune to this flattening. Yet, what's also key to consider when we talk about future values is the mileage. We saw that the mileage is the key price driver, and a large mileage increase can therefore offset any value increase. On average, a 997 turbo loses between 0.6 and 0.7% per 1000 miles driven. And with that, let's wrap up and conclude. We started the video with an overview of the turbo market and then zoomed into the 997 turbo market. This revealed that it's mainly the mileage which sets the price. We then continued by looking at the price increase over time, and this revealed that with an increase of 29% during the last 2 years and a bit, prices are on a roll. Yet, many cars increased in value during this time, so it's not surprising to see that all turbo prices went up. It's however the 997 turbo which saw the largest increase. When we corrected for the difference in time period, we saw that the 997 turbo increased with 37% versus 26 and 10% for the 996 and 991 market. Therefore, from a value perspective, the 997 turbo is the one to have. Now, it's often difficult to pinpoint why certain models increase more than other models, but in this case the 997 turbo really seems to live up to its reputation of being the best modern 911. On top of that, we could also see the first signs that the 997 market might become a collectible market. Yet, the signs are not yet as strong as in the 996 turbo market. And if you want to know more about that market, then I recommend that you click on the pop-up banner right over here. Now, even though that we saw such a large price increase during the last period, I don't think it's likely that this will continue in the near-term future. Rather, as I explained in the video, I think it's more likely that we can see a flattening of the trend. Therefore, if you are looking for an investment with a quick return, the 997 turbo market might not be the car for you. It's always easy in hindsight, but 2019 and the first half of 2020 were excellent moments to enter the market. On the other hand, if you are in it for the love of a 997, I don't see many reasons as to why you shouldn't get one. Prices are likely to increase a bit or remain relatively stable in the near-term future. I think it's unlikely that we will see large price drops in the upcoming period. And with that, we arrived at the end of this video. Now, if you like this data-driven way of analyzing car markets, but would have liked to see the analysis for a different car, let me know in the comment section down below for which car you would like to see an analysis. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I will make a video about it. Don't forget then to subscribe and click on the notification button so you get actually notified when your requested analysis goes live. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week for a new video.